I think will be numbers that we think we can hit. But it goes without saying, it's still not going to all be solved with revenue increases. So the numbers still, police is still asking for about $900,000 more than the budget last year, fire about $775,000, and that's really most of the increases. The board knows some of that's reflected in the additional hiring that we've done. You can see the rest of the numbers, but this number in the airport has been cut back because of capital improvements that were made last year, a couple of roofs that I mentioned in previous meetings. And this is in anticipation of some additional equipment, second bar out of Fox Point, some of those things in next year's budget. So we're still, if you take the revenues that we think we project a little less than $38 million, this is, at the end of the day, a $38 million village budget. We're still about $500,000 short on where we need to be 4 weeks from now. Again, I've mentioned all these before, and board, you can read the handout. We've talked about it time to time, where the $19.5 million came from. This really is the number of where we're at today. A little over $500,000 still of a shortfall. Even, as I say, even without some of those adjustments to last year's revenues. The general fund budget right now is $38.5 million, which is about 1.7 ahead of the 24 approved budget. Keep in mind that was 1.6 million higher than the year before. So a couple of numbers that I think it's good for our department heads to remember is that right at the time of COVID, we were around a little less than $30 million. So we're $9 million higher in our spending than we were just 4 years ago. And our budget for 23 was $35 million. So again, I think the board has been really good about giving department heads what they've asked for, but it goes without saying it's going to also be tied to how well we do on the revenue side. I wanted to give the board a snapshot of all of our other funds, which supplement our budget from time to time. I've talked time to time about what we need to do on the water fund, and I hope to have something along those lines on there for that July 16th meeting as to what we need to do to build that fund up for some of the water main repairs that we know we're faced with over the coming 5, 6, 7 years. And again, most of these funds are in really good shape. You can see where our cash balances are. The board's all too well aware of our TIF funding, which we use for a lot of our projects. We have begun to move money from a few of the TIFs. I know the board's well aware of what we're doing with Ridge Road on the extension, and we have another TIF that's going to expire in about 2 years. So again, the thought is to move a lot of that into the areas of the town where TIF funding is there. For example, that as the board knows, the new Chicago Avenue TIF for the Public Works project. So again, I wanted to make sure that you had a snapshot of where our funds are. All these numbers are generally where they'll be on July 16th, but there might be a couple of slight adjustments as we move money between contiguous TIFs. Again, to fund capital projects within those TIFs. I wanted to kind of say here, the goal here is for us to be at a balanced budget by July 16th without using cash reserves. Again, I've mentioned it before, we've made a lot of headway, but our cash reserves are where they should be when you look at a $38 million budget and $19 million of cash reserves. You should really be GFOA guidelines, not that you have to follow those, but their guidelines would say that you should be 50% of your operating budget for the year. The ongoing street program, the goal there, as I mentioned before, with Administrator Pikorski and with Jeff and the Robinson team, is to use MFT funds and street improvement fund as our debt comes down, we can replenish the levy, and my hope would be that we could use MFT and street funds to do what the board wants to do in the PNP program each year. Hopefully the target would be a number in that $1.5 million to $2 million range. Capital projects, water, sewer, and streets are really based on, as the board knows, priority. We're going to sit down with Jeff and his group on a week from Thursday to determine what's realistic about what we're really going to do this year and what's going to be fed into that 5-year plan that I mentioned that we've also been working on with CNAP. Capital equipment, there's two that I know are on the horizon. One is a 30 ambulance, which the board knows all too well is the lifeblood of that department from the standpoint of ambulatory revenues, or I should say insurance reimbursement. They're not really, I hate to call them revenues per se, and then fire engine, we have a plan on paying off some of the debt associated with the engine that was purchased in 2019 and a timeline on when that second engine will be here. And then we are going to get to more of a regular 5 to 7 lease vehicles a year. Most of those, as the board knows, are squads. So I wanted to touch base real quick on the tax levy. Just, again, I've had a number of discussions with Trustee Abbasi about this in the Finance Committee. The goal would be to be a COLA increase for that, not the full increase of what the board is allowed to do, but a number of 2.5 to 3.5. And then I took the chance of giving you a copy of last year's levy, just to show you kind of along the lines of, it's really not going to be much different from this. Last year's increase, as the board might recall, was 2.95% on what you would call the corporate levy. That's after library, after pensions, after debt. And I've mentioned in 2 years that debt component will go away. And my hope is that we would present something to the board where you would approve this pension number going up. So that's really kind of where we're at and where I expect us to be. I don't think there's going to be any major surprises. I know the board has been involved in all of our meetings with our department heads initially, but we still have some work to do. We're not there yet. So with that, I might be able to answer any questions or get any thoughts that you have on if there's any direction of where we're going with a lot of the departments for this year's budget.
Any questions for Finance Director Hanigan right now? Finance Director, do we have, when do you expect to get us, if we have some time with the kind of wrapped up budget prior to July 16th meeting or whatever it is?
Yeah, I would hope that I'm going to be able to get that to you by that week right after 4th of July. Probably like the 11th, by the 11th of that week. Or by give that to you in plenty of time with your packets. Maybe even before that, if I can, Trustee Abbasi.
Administrator Pogorski, the public meeting would be at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a couple of things. We're required to have a copy of the budget appropriation available for public inspection at least 10 days before the public hearing. So whatever format it's in, Finance Director Hanigan and we might not be done with it, but whatever shape it's in, it'll be available for public inspection, obviously 10 days before. We'll talk with Clerk Payne about when we want to do the public hearing. We've typically allowed for some time. Brian is obviously a lot more, very detailed, and we'll probably go through a fairly lengthy presentation in the public hearing. So I would say at least 5:30. I'll check to see what we did last year.
6.
We did it at 6.
I checked today.
Did we change were we at the 6 o'clock start last year though?
No, we started an hour before, so we should really start at 5.
But there's nothing that prevents you from scheduling it at 6 and then have the board meeting follow promptly after.
Yeah, you guys just want to keep everything at 6 o'clock? I think it probably makes the most sense. I know it's probably about as early as a couple of you can get here coming from work. So, all right, we'll let's just say for now, we'll keep we'll start next month's meeting with the public hearing at 6, then the regular board meeting, then the committee meeting.
Trustees, any questions for Finance Director Hanigan?
Yeah, Brian, I know you said you want to chisel this down at 500,000. Is that going to be kind of through like the fire, police, and streets? Is that mainly where you're going to be targeting to try and get that down, or are you going to?
Well, I think they make up most of the budget, Trustee Hardy, as you know. So most of the requests are from those 3 departments. Now, in the case of Public Works, we kind of see that the street increase was only about $10,000 over last year. So again, but that was a pretty significant increase because it was about that $5.1 million number was 4.3 for the year before that. So we did increase it from the previous year, but to answer your question, yes, those are the 3 departments that I'm going to go back to again, because we obviously have to present to you as a board a balanced budget. As I said, my goals, at least for this meeting, was to make sure that we get before you a balanced budget, as I said, which is not going to use cash reserves. Because I think our cash reserves are where they should be. Again, kudos to a lot of people that had a lot to do with that, including the department heads. But I don't think it's a prudent budget to be using reserves that are where they should be to fund that remaining $500,000. Sure.
Director Hanigan, you said the fire engine that was purchased in 2019, you had a plan to pay off. Is that in phases?
Well, the final payment is April of 26. So the final capital lease payment, Trustee Smith, for that apparatus is April of 26. I think in speaking with Deputy Chief Grady and Chief Boyenga, the ordering time is about 2 years, so my hope would be that we would get delivery of that. It's a little tough, I think John can attest to this, on when these apparatus are actually going to get to us, but it would probably be in that spring 26, summer 26, so fiscal year 27 timeframe. So that fiscal year 27 budget is when we would have to start providing for capital lease payments. As the board knows, though, that is a particular piece of apparatus that is in excess of $1 million, probably in the neighborhood of 1.2 to 1.3, and so it requires a fair amount of planning. As I think we've tried to show you before, on doing that as the other piece of apparatus is paid off.
Finance Director.
Sure, thank you.